this month, we wanted to do something about, hey, we want you to file feedback. We love listening to customers and whatnot. So we actually decided to show you some of the behind the scenes type stuff as insiders have the ability to experience external. We'll be talking about the customer rep program, as I mentioned, and then we will talk about the user experience research sessions, of which there will be one immediately after this webcast. So if you would like to speak to some actual Microsoft engineers on some topics that we have planned to discuss, we will share how to do that during this presentation. Jessica will cover that material. And then last but not least, I do want to share some interesting things we have going on with the Windows Insider podcast, which is different than this webcast as you are seeing live. I'll talk through that at the end because we're doing this month. One went live a couple Wednesdays ago, and the other half is going live tomorrow. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So without further ado, let me introduce Vivek. He has been on a couple webcasts in the past. If you were here for you had the pleasure of seeing him for the first time in person on camera. He's been in the background a few times, but it's nice to have his smiling face joining us today. So with that, Eddie, I will let you over to Vivek so he can get.
I am Vivek Govan. I am a PM on the Windows Insider program. I work with Jason, Brandon, and Amanda, and Eddie, of course. So you have seen me in the background in most of the webcasts. Today, I want to talk more about customer. So Customer Up, the program, is about connecting engineers directly with customers like you. Right? We want you to get an opportunity to talk directly to the engineers, and engineers actually having a direct conversation with you without any middleman in between. Like we call ourselves middlemen too, and middlemen, right? Like we want to have a direct connection so that they get to know what features you like and what feedback you have, and they can go around fixing it so that it's faster. And for this, we have a lot of things, right? Like we have a lot of channels, and we go through this training for anyone who is joining new. And it's mainly for interns and new to the organization, if it be, and learning to be more customer obsessed as part of our culture. And that is what this Customer Up to promote. This agenda, we will have this almost a half a day training involves talking through why it's important to the engineers and what to say and what not to say, where to actually have these conversations, where to actually listen to you, insiders and retail customers, and how to talk back and how to have this conversation. And that is what we cover in this Customer Up training. We used to have it in person, and now we are having it as a remote. We have a monthly cadence to it. So stepping to the next slide, what we are going to talk more about is what happens in these trainings. And that should give you an idea of what we are trying to achieve with this, so that there may be channels in which we are listening, which you may not be aware of, or there may be channels which we have feedback we want captured in this webcast. So where we started off with is with our company's vision about obsessing over customers is everybody's job. It doesn't necessarily mean to be a program manager or a product manager or marketing or sales. We want everyone to be customer obsessed, developers, everyone, right? So that's where we started our journey on, like, hey, how can we improve this culture, and how can we get in as part of our general life cycle. For that, we started off with something what we call the customer feedback loop. It starts off, if you look at the slide, these are usually where we actually announce the features, we talk to you, and we describe what we are building, and we try to get, as the next step, we talk to you customers, and we try to get the feedback from you guys. We try to say, hey, what are you talking when we are announcing a feature? This is whatever features we comes out in the insider builds, right? Like when you send out a feature to the insider build, we are listening for feedback, either it's through Feedback Hub or through Twitter or any of the other channels, right? Like we are listening. And as we listen, we try to consolidate and correlate and see what are the insights we can get from these feedback. With these insights, we try to develop new products or make changes to features we already released, or even pull back in some cases if the feature is not working as we expected. And that is where this whole cycle is important. And that's where the whole insider program works, right? What Customer Up does is bringing more and more developers and engineers across Microsoft to actually get closer and closer with the customers so that this feedback loop can be shorter, quicker, and more effective when there is no kind of filter in between. So we're trying to get as close, you as customers, to the engineers as possible. And that is what this feedback loop is about, of how we go about developing any product. And this is across Microsoft and across the industry. We start off with this lifecycle model where we start off with it can start off at any step, but if you look at it, it's like we are building a product, we are releasing the product, we are looking for feedback, and at every single step, we are trying to get insights. And when we are product building, we also go through a phase of solution hypothesis and problem hypothesis, where we are trying to figure out what are the problems based on your feedback, and trying to make solutions out of it, and then go ahead with the product development. Usually, this is where it lands, where story lands, and where feedback lands. But we try to make sure every single step of it. So today's talk, what I'm going to more about what we do with storytelling, right? Like where we go from here, what kind of stories we say, and how we say it. And this is also a point where you can give us feedback on, hey, these are the channels which we want us to listen more, or there are channels which we don't know about and which, right? Like, so that is, and we can incorporate it back into the Customer App so that we can actually make the loop even stronger. From the perspective of storytelling, we have multiple channels, right? Like with social, flight blogs, then it moves over to newsletters, and we have plenty of these channels. And I will touch upon a few of them in detail, and on one of these channels, Intercept, which we will actually talk more about because that's what is happening right after this talk. We will have an Intercept call, and in fact, most of these slides are from the Customer Up training. This is what new employees and interns, when they join or got joined the company, or it's for anyone who wants to learn more about how to talk to customers, right? So to start off things, it's about social. I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with it, and this is one of our important channels which we go after. And Amanda, Brandon, Jason, Jen, Eddie, all of them are in this. They are all there on the social channels. Of course, we use our Windows Insider Twitter handle to actually get a lot of feedback from you to our employees so that they can get involved along with us. Or if they want to, or if they are Twitter shy, or if they don't have a Twitter account, they can always contact us, and we post it on the Windows Insider program. We watch the stream.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica, and I'm a user experience researcher. But one of the key things was the storytelling channels that we have available. So there's really different avenues that we want to be able to share our stories, especially when it comes to talking to you, our insiders. So there's social, there's news articles and blogs. And with the Windows Insider program, there's newsletters and emails. And what's great is that we also have our MVPs, events, and cohorts, and podcasts, and our webcasts. And we really appreciate how you're just rolling with us challenges as we transition. But one of the great things is that we have to do storytelling and really share your experience. So as you can see, the Windows Insider program, we have guests on the webcast now. And so you can navigate to that URL, blogs.windows.com, on the Windows Insider program page to really see what's coming up.
For the builds that we put out into the various Insider channels, we'll do blog posts that highlight all of the cool stuff that's included in those builds, as well as fixes and known issues, which are really important for insiders to know ahead of time before taking a build. We focus a lot of effort into being, as communicative as possible on these flights. And then the promotion of engineers are doing and their features allow for insiders give us. Jen and I work really hard on this. And then in addition to the flight notes, we also maintain Flight Hub on Docs, and there you go.
Next up is the Insider newsletters. That's another channel which we use to communicate with customers, and a lot of teams take part in giving us content for it. So this is another way where our engineers are actually contributing to the storytelling aspect, so that they can talk more about their feature and more about the product, so that we can get great feedback from you. If you have not signed up for a newsletter, you can sign up for the newsletter, and it gets sent out once a month. It's sent in 10 languages so that we get feedback from different set of audiences. The contents are usually sourced from the WIP blog, and we also not only cover not only Windows, but a little bit of other high-profile announcements from across the company. We also look for feedback from you. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please go ahead and sign up for the newsletter. Get awesome updates that way. And sometimes we try to go more in depth. As papers, we have more coverage there. The next channel which we do is we always send out an annual survey out, and that is a very important gauge for us, the Windows Insider program, and the feature teams to know about the state of how the builds are doing and what kind of feedback we are looking at from the insiders. So long form surveys, it's sent out once a year from the feature team. This is for, say, for example, the one which I've shown you is a survey which we sent out for Notepad. The Notepad developers wanted more feedback on certain features they were developing, and they wanted to send out a survey to you insiders and customers to see what kind of features can be added for Notepad. So if you get those surveys, please fill that out for us, because that helps us define for our feature areas. Next up is podcast, which Jason, we started off on my talk. The podcast is a kind of a monthly cadence. Feature teams actually come in flighting, security, Insider Live, quantum computing. We cover a wide range of topics with these podcasts, and these are usually sometimes in-depth details with the feature teams. These used to be recorded in the Microsoft studios, but now it's all remote. Jason has this awesome setup where he can actually record these podcasts remotely. Add a couple of points in this, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like real quick. I mean, there's some stuff that I want to talk about the August podcast. I'll cover it at the very end of today's presentation, but I will simply say that the transition from the studio environment to us doing it at home, it did present some unique challenges, but we've managed to have a way to capture individual audio streams so we can still do proper editing and things like that. So if you notice some difference in audio quality from, say, 4 or 5 months back when we were still in the studio until now, It's really just related to the fact that people are doing this from their kitchen or their dining room. Their kids are at home, their dogs barking in the background. It's the human nature of the environment. Bear with us a little bit. We're trying our best, but we appreciate you tuning in all the same.
Yep. Moving on. The next was Webcast. I know it's so meta. So we talk about this Webcast to our engineers, and we invite engineers to come and have do demos for you. So yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about the Webcast here. So the other place where we have a lot of engineers participating currently is the Windows Insider forums. Right, this is where we do most of our debug, listens your issues if you are having any, and this is something which we do as part of customer up training, is getting people introduced into these forums because there are multiple forums in which the engineers need to be part of. Moving on from storytelling, the other aspect, in person and interacting with other people, is the Windows Insider MVPs. So there are 160 Windows Insider MVPs currently. You can check them out in the link provided. They help with product feedback, and we use we actually interact with the Windows Insider MVPs early in the product cycle to get more early feedback. And we actually provide them with office hours with them. We have a separate Yammer group, and we also have MVP summits where we actually interact with these MVPs. If you want to be an MVP, there's a process for it. And if you think and we need to nominate you, so go ahead and read up about that in the MVP site, and we can actually, we would love to have more MVPs. So please go ahead and apply for it. The other things which we used to do are conferences and events. Of course, given the current scenarios, we don't do person anymore. These are all remote. The one which is coming up is Ignite in September. We would love to see you all there. That's a place where we encourage a lot more of our engineers to be hands-on with customers, and these are the places where these engineers come and talk to customers. Moving on, there are a lot more programs which we do. We do a lot of retail events. We have programs called Compass Connect, Flash Feedback, Coffee with Customers. These are all channels where we actually go ahead and bring in the engineers and have these direct. These are all different kinds of programs which we do and which we introduce to the engineers as part of this customer up training. And if you want to be part of any of these, please go ahead and sign up in these. Moving on, there's more. Never-ending list of channels. Yeah, there's more. We used to do stories, a lot of tech bloggers. We do a lot of interviews. There's also usability. So there's a lot of places where we come and have direct conversations with customers. And if you are not part of any, it's always easy to sign up. Please go ahead and sign up for all these channels which I spoke about today. We would like to hear from you. And the most important thing which we wanted to do in this conversation was to know from you all, like, where do you want us more? Like, should we be in, I don't know, in Twitch more, or is there any other channel where you want us to be? I know Jason is going to give me a stink eye if I say TikTok.
You don't even go there. I don't want to hear it. There will never be a TikTok video of me doing whatever. Not personally, not professionally. There's not going to be me dancing with the taco hat on. It ain't happening. Don't even try it.
Okay, I gave it a try. But we can also follow us on YouTube, which is where this webcast will be recorded and stored. So if there's any channels, let us know in the chat. I'll be watching the stat for more of these channels. Uh, Red Ninja Cat, which is the storytelling aspect of the channels. Moving on to the feedback side, where do you give feedback? Yes, you have listened to all these stories we tell you, listen to all the feature updates, you install the builds. The feedback hub is our main go-to spot. And this is where we have all the engineers and all the team looking into. We directly look into this feedback. Each team owns it. I know we already had a webcast about feedback hub before, so I'm not going to go in depth. So please file in your feedback. We are reading it through, and if there are more investigations which are needed, we do send out an email to you guys as part of the Windows Insider program to know more about it, like if the feedback is not complete. So we do send out emails. So please help us actually give us more data if we need for that feedback, so that we can actually fix the problems or to understand more of your feature request. So that is about the feedback hub. I'm purposely not going in depth, mainly because there's already a webcast. You can see it in the archive section about how we actually look through feedback and how to file a good feedback. And there are also links up which will actually talk more about how to file a good feedback and how to get a response from it. The next step is about insights. So once we get these feedback is when we start aggregating and we start making hypotheses out of it. We say, hey, this is what a bunch of insiders are telling us about this feature. What do we think the problem is? And we come up with a problem hypothesis. And then we say, okay, these are the potential solutions for these feedback we are getting. To do that, we have called this phase as the insight phase, where we try to narrow it down to our customers to say, hey, you are the target customer for this, and this is what we think the problem is. Is it valid? Or these are the solutions we have. Is that valid? And insight is the intercept tool. Intercept is something which we use to gather these hypotheses and actually have these interaction with the customers so that we need more. More than me talking, I think it would be better if Jessica talks about it, and that's what we are going to go in next. And take it away, Jessica.
Thanks so much, Vivek. Again, I'm Jessica Tran, and I am a user experience researcher at Microsoft. And I'm going to be talking specifically about a program that allows you be directly with a Microsoft engineer. These are user experience research sessions, and what makes these really unique is that you get the opportunity to talk directly with an engineer. This is the user experience research sessions, and what makes these directly with the engineers who design and build your Microsoft product. So this isn't a help desk, this isn't trading. You are actually talking to the engineers and product PMs and designers who are building your experience. And these are one-on-one voice conversations that are completely anonymous and not recorded. And something that influence and improve your product experience. And we really appreciate your time. So we keep these conversations pretty brief, roughly 8 to 10 minutes, because we know and we really appreciate the feedback that you bring. Now, we've been doing these user experience research sessions for roughly about a year and a half now. So you might be seeing these different invitations coming from Jen, the Windows Insider Twitter handle, as well as from Jason, just promoting these events. And you might be wondering, what are these? You know, they came out maybe about a year ago, and engineers are talking to engineers are talking to customers. So when you see them, you know, take a moment to navigate to the page. And let's say for some instance, you might miss that Twitter post, but you're just curious about future opportunities. Next slide. Windows Insider page, you actually go and then hit events and contests, and then under user research, if you click on that, next slide, you will actually see a listing of all the upcoming sessions. So if you happen to participate in a previous session and you're just curious about what's available coming up, because we're constantly updating these opportunities for you to talk to engineers. Next slide. And so in addition to just seeing these events posted on social media and also on the Windows Insider website, there's also opportunity through invitations on in-app notifications. So here's an example. This particular notification says, talk to a Microsoft engineer about your search experience. And so slide and show the demo. So this is an example of how, based on your usage of your device, you're going to be invited to participate in a conversation. So this is just an example of a customer going to their taskbar and completing a web search. The team was really curious about how did insiders like yourself discover to complete a search? What were some pain points? What are a key thing about using these specific notifications is that we do leverage Hub. So if you see it, but you also will need to open up a separate web browser and type in that ux.microsoft.com URL, and that will place you directly into the call queue. So for those of you on the call, you've experienced this and you've navigated to the page, and when we're live, you're going to be placed right into that call queue. And sometimes that wait time that are talking to customers, and so we really appreciate your time. So when you navigate to that page, first it will tell you where if you wanted to, then when it's your turn, it's going to change and say that you're up. So when it's your turn, the page will change and it's up. And when you're ready, you just have to hit that call button on your web browser. Next slide. You're not going to be connected to the engineer through the web browser. You don't need to install anything. You just need to navigate to that URL. And then as you make that transition, the UI will change and it will tell you that you're in the lobby. And sometimes there is a little engineers are wrapping up a call, but they want to make sure we're moving you from that lobby experience into the actual conversation. So you're going to hear elevator music, and we try to have you for not too long. And finally, this is the point where you are talking to an engineer. The web page will change and it says you're speaking with Microsoft, and this is where you're going to have really want to hear from you. The engineers will have a couple of research questions that they want to ask you, but we really want to understand and know what your experience is and what your feedback that you have. Right, next slide. And something that anytime you could hang up the call, and this is totally anonymous, so you do not need to share any personal information. And one of the key things is that because it's anonymous, we actually don't know who you are. But if you're interested in participating in future user research sessions, we invite you to Experience Research Panel. So what you see here on the screen is we would like to invite you to a panel. And so you could click on that banner to sign up, and it'll actually open up a new web browser. And let's say during your conversation, you're not sure if you want to participate, so you don't click on it. Nope, you're actually going to see another opportunity to enroll into that panel. And if you're interested, feel free to click on that button to enroll. So when you click on it, you're actually going to be navigated to a separate page where it is the opportunity to enroll in that research panel. Watching now, you could sign up today if you're interested. This is independent of the Windows and add-on as another opportunity and channel. So there it is, aka.ms/UX feedback. And you might be wondering, okay, so there's so many channels. We're providing feedback. What happens? Like, does anything happen? Does it go into like a black hole? And the answer is we are listening. Engineers are listening and taking action. So I wanted to show two specific examples of how your feedback, especially during these science research sessions, has really impacted the product. So here I'm showing an example of the taskbar team. So they had 3 specific research questions. The first was, what kinds of taskbar customizators find valuable? And also, what do you do with the taskbar? What did you wish the taskbar did better? And then finally, the third is your taskbar. So this particular engineering had multiple sessions talking to customers, and what they heard was that in the end, they actually wanted to have a longer conversation with you. Could you go back one slide? And what happened was that they wanted to respond back. So on the previous slide, it actually showed an article response to all the feedback. So this was an example of how the engineers took your feedback and wanted to just write back in specific to the taskbar. Thanks, Eddie. And so what the next feature team was the light theme team. So what they were interested in talking about was, what are insiders' impressions of the new Windows Light theme? So if you recall when that rolled out, there were some key things that they heard. And so over 4 days, this feature team was talking to customers, and what they learned was that insiders were motivated to just try it out. So that some of the feedback that they did hear was that on the eyes, and so that's why they decided to switch back to their original theme. Some of the quotes that we heard, especially from one of the anonymous callers, was and it appeared that the icons were looking a little too dark and too heavy. And so, the feature team really did take that to heart and iterated on the design. And now what you use when it comes to Windows Light theme is based off of an iteration with your feedback included. So the feature PM shared that the biggest piece of feedback we heard from those customer calls were that those icons, so we modified the color from black to a semi-transparent black. So what you see now as part of the experience is really a result of your feedback and us really wanting to act on it. Another thing that I want to share is that if you see these invitations, whether it's through social media or that in-app notification invitation, and maybe you haven't used that feature before, we still want to talk to you, because your experience and why you're using it or not even using it, the engineers that are building out the feature and experiences. All right. Next slide. Is that we try our best to be online when those notifications go out, but there are going to be some times that maybe that engineering feature team isn't online due to just the global footprint that we have. So we are really aware of that. So first, if you navigate to that page and you see that we're offline, please take a moment to download that calendar invite. It's an ICS file that you can download, come back and talk to us when we're back online. Next slide. And also, if you navigate to that page and you see, and if you have not enrolled for the panel yet, feel free to enroll to that user community to dive into a more in-depth user experience research session, and that anonymity is removed. And so without further ado, I do want to share that after this webcast, we get to talk to the engineering team live. And we actually have 2 different topics with 2 different links that you can navigate to. And depending on your availability, please join both or either one. So first, the first topic is your experience using Windows aka.ms/talk warranties. And the research questions will range from what is your experience with Windows warranties and even with other warranties, like what do you like, what do you dislike, how you used them. Topic 2 is going to be focusing more on your experience with Xbox payments, and you'll be talking to a feature team from the Xbox team. And you don't necessarily have to use Xbox payments. Even different types of online payment services would be of interest. So you can navigate to aka.ms/talk Xbox. So while today we have these 2 topics, we have more topics coming up monthly. So please be on the lookout when you see it. We really appreciate the time that you're putting in to dial in. Forward to talking with you. And of course, I'm going to plug this research panel one more time. Next slide is that you might be wondering, for the you who have participated this in the past, like, what are the supported browsers? So I wanted to share with you just what is supported. So on a Windows device, of course, we have Edge, Chromium, Chrome, and Firefox. And if you decide to use an Android device, again, you could use Edge, Chromium, Chrome, Firefox. If you decide to use Linux, please stick to Chrome or Firefox. Mac OS, Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. And for those of you using iOS mobile device, just stick to Safari. Another thing that I want to share, because we do hear feedback when it comes to participating in these user research sessions. Next slide. What to do if you encounter any audio issues. Audio issues may happen. So something I do want to share is that if you decide to use a mobile device, it is a known blocker that if your phone lock screen comes on during a conversation, it will disable the audio. And so that is known, and that actually means your lock screen is working. So the pro tip, sure, as you're in the queue, and especially when you're having a conversation with an engineer, just keep that web browser active during the conversation. The Bluetooth headset, there are some peripheral devices that have known connectivity issues. So what we recommend is to use your computer mic. Audio issues happen, but we just want to make sure you're having, a fun and positive experience. And so again, I'm going to show the slide one more time, just so you can know what links to navigate to following this webcast, so you could participate in the user research sessions. Thanks so much.
Awesome, Jessica. Thank you so much for covering all of that fantastic material. Hopefully insiders found it valuable. I know that during the chat, there was a lot of comments and suggestions of folks talking about some of their past experiences, seeing the new slides of how it works now, because I know you and the rest of your team have done a great deal of work trying to simplify, beautify, as well as make a more engaging and user-friendly experience for doing some of these user research sessions. I will say that, just dialing in and testing. I never actually talk as a Microsoft employee, and we don't want employees doing this, right? So if you are a Microsoft employee tuning in, we love you. We appreciate you being an employee, but these sessions are not designed for you. Particular sessions, but really, like, good feedback. And for all the insiders that are tuned in right now, after this session, please join one of the sessions. Like, if there's something you want to share your feedback on of one of those topics, please join in. on the experience and let us know what you think. Jessica will be listening in not only to hear your feedback, but as well as the experience you had of, joining the call, what you thought of the process and things like that. So looks like Eddie's flopping around on the slides, but he has hit the important one that I want to cover. So for August 2020, the last tidbit that we want to cover before we end the webcast today is about the Insider Podcast. This was something that I mentioned at the beginning of the webcast today, and we kind of hinted at it a couple times along the way. For August, we did something different that we haven't done before. So for those of you who haven't tuned into the podcast, that link right there, aka.ms/whip podcast. That is where you can find the historical archive of all of the podcasts that we've done previously. But August was a two-part podcast, something we haven't done before. Some episodes that we have done since transitioning to this work and home environment were a topic, but the overall episode was a little bit shorter. Some of that was related to timing and scheduling conflicts and things of that nature, but it seems to have gone okay. We've gotten good feedback that some of the more snackable episodes, if you have been good and users have enjoyed them. But for this August episode, this August, what is it? Brandon's got to correct me because I always want to mix the two dates up. Remember, is it the 24th or the 25th? Is it the 25th? It's the 24th.
24th.
Is the 25th anniversary of we're like a week away, and I'm finally going to get it right. So the 24th is the 25th anniversary. All right.
Yep.
So
we have something cool. We'll do a blog post. We have something cool in addition to those podcasts, and we'll wrap it 24th.
Yeah. So on the podcast, we had two guests whose name you can see here. Podcast on August the 5th, and that was with Raymond Chen, a name that many of you are probably familiar with. If you've checked out his blog before, it's called The Old New Thing. You can definitely look for it. And then tomorrow, we will release the second half of this month's episode, which was an interview with another by the name of Chris Guzak. So why did we pick these two folks? Because they were around when Windows 95 was coming to life. And so they have a lot of history about what has changed with Windows over the past 25 years, what it was like working on Windows 95, and everything from, Eddie, if you want to flip slides, or you hit the next button, the whole about to pop up. I'm gonna wait for that to show so folks can see it. There we go. So you will hear about the 25th anniversary of Windows 95. They do talk about usability and user experience. That's some stuff that Chris goes into. Compatibility testing, Raymond has an entire thing on. It's hilarious. There's a really funny story. If you've listened to it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you got to check it out. Between both of them, they talk a little bit about Start Menu and Taskbar, both of which were new features that were developed back for Windows 95, which kind of started that legacy of a lot of the look and feel of what people Windows. And it's, even though it's been around for 25 years, it is definitely not the same as it was when it first launched. Things have changed quite a bit, which is a testament to the staying power of some of what makes Windows Windows. But at the same point in time, the changes that you see in the OS today, the more modern and refreshed version of Windows, it shows you how much engineering and insight has gone into user experience and customer feedback across the decades. And then source control. There's some really funny stories about source control that Raymond and I discuss. And then just generally, there's just funny stories from the past from both of these folks. It was a really good time having them in the studio. And both of their interviews, they ran longer than we had originally expected, which is why we split it into two episodes. So it was there was so much goodness. We didn't want to kind of pack out an almost 2-hour episode, decided to split it. So now you've got both of them. So you got the first half, and you can check out the second half tomorrow morning. I don't know exactly what time it launches. I think it's 10 a.m. Pacific time. Anyway, grab that link, aka.ms/whippod. All right, Eddie, that is the end of the agenda for today's webcast. I know that this has been, shall we say, an experience. I know we've had, the first half hour with some audio snags, and Eddie pulled off some heroics to get us going here. It's been a lot of fun, even despite the little bit of craziness that we had. We appreciate everybody who tuned in, making the time. Thank you for staying with us as we work through some of the hiccups. All the smiling faces are on the screen right now. So on behalf of Brandon, Jen, Vivek, and Jessica, I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate you making the time.